Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley. He's my co-host, Ryan Blake. Ryan, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Paul. Had a very late family Christmas party last night, so waking up a little close to showtime, but I'm ready to roll.
All right, man. Yeah, you and me both. For those that don't know, I am a new daddy. Our daughter came on Tuesday morning, 3:59 a.m. It was a 30-hour labor and 4 hours of pushing for my poor wife to deliver a 9 pound, 6 ounce baby. Um, and she is awesome. We had some complications, but she was able to come home on time. And last night was chaos. Last night was chaos. She cried for about 3 hours straight, from about 2:45 in the morning to about 5:45 in the morning. So that was a rough night. But she's upstairs sleeping soundly. So is the wife, and we're here on the Bat Around to discuss all things baseball, not all things Paul.
But
Uh,
you
so
you look you look wide awake. I still have these bags under my eyes, so whatever you're doing, Paul, you're doing it right.
That's just genes, my dude. No, I forced myself out. There's a cat under my table. I forced myself out of bed at 8:45 so I could get the setup taken care of in the basement because I'm going to be doing the show from the basement from now on because of the baby. So wanted to get that done. So I guess I'm just waking up a little bit. I also have a really nice light that kind of drowns out the bags. But
There you go.
want to remind everybody today's show brought to you by Superbook. It's not just World Series futures that you can bet at Superbook right now. You can also bet a futures bet which MLB pitcher will finish the season with the most wins. Garrett Cole is a favorite at 14-1, with Spencer Strider just behind at 16-1. And if you're feeling froggy, jump, baby. Grayson Rodriguez currently pays 50-1. When you sign up at Superbook, use the code PressBox23 and you will receive a same-day first bet match up to $250, win or lose. So hop on that because, like we said, if you're feeling froggy, you want to jump. We want to talk a little bit more off-season accolades. No hardware to take home, but Adley Rutschman was ranked the top catcher in baseball by MLB Network's top 10 catchers right now list. They do this for all the positions. I do want to get into Gunnar Henderson here in a second. I didn't put it in my notes, but I don't want to forget about it, so I want to mention it now. First and foremost, what are our thoughts that he finished first ahead of guys like Will Smith, JT Realmuto, Salvador Perez, Adley Rutschman, baseball's top catcher, according to the Shredder on MLB Network?
Yeah, it's very well deserved. I can't say I expected him to be ranked above guys like Will Smith and JT Realmuto, who had been doing it for quite some time now. I think it's exceptional that Adley is getting the recognition despite just being in the league for 2 years now. But at the same time, it's hard to argue the impact that he's had on the Orioles, the value he has as a player. I think he absolutely is the top catcher in baseball. On a personal level, I was just a little bit surprised to see him actually listed above the Will Smiths and the JT Realmutos.
And the Sean Murphys of the world. But
Yeah.
he had the highest WAR amongst all of them, according to the highest B WAR amongst all of them. So kudos to Adley Rutschman. We saw some Texas Rangers fans, like as if all the accolades weren't enough. Not enough that you got a World Series championship. Not enough that you swept the Orioles to get there. Not enough that you got that Jonah Heim was a starting catcher in the All-Star game and won a Gold Glove. There's the bitching that he's not that he wasn't even on the top 10 list, let alone in the top 5. Wasn't even on the list. Well, look, he started the All-Star game because of the fan vote, because Texas flooded the voting boxes. It's not boxes anymore, it's all online, but they clicked their little hearts out because Rutschman was the better catcher this year, and he was worth more than 2 wins more than Jonah Heim this year. In fact, there was only one catcher on the list that had a lower B WAR than Heim's 2.3, and that was Alejandro Kirk at 1.9. And Kirk did not have a good year. He wasn't great defensively either, but I think that he got the nod on that because of what he did the year before, and he doesn't strike out a ton. Are Rangers fans right to be miffed that Jonah Heim wasn't on this top 10 list, or should they just shut the hell up and be happy with all their hardware?
It's tough, man. Look, I'm happy for Jonah Heim. There's no denying that he had a breakout year last year. He was really good. And I will say that Adley absolutely had the better year overall, right? At the All-Star break, Jonah Heim was kind of neck and neck with him. It was one of those situations where, as much as it would have been great to see Adley get the nod to start the All-Star game, I couldn't really, looking at the stats at that point in the season, it was hard for me to say that Heim did not deserve it. I do agree that Texas was stuffing the ballots all over the place, kind of like we saw the Royals do in, I think, 2016 or 15, which was absurd. But nonetheless, Jonah Heim was exceptional this season. He had his breakout. It was kind of frustrating to see since he was once the Orioles catching prospect. But at the same time, look, do I think he's top 10 in baseball? Probably. But it's not one of those things where I don't think it's a snub, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to look at the guys that are on that top 10 list, and maybe you can make an argument that as an overall catcher, he's better than the Wilson and William Contrerases of the world. But those guys, their offensive profile far outshine Jonah Himes. So they're going to be on that list, and then you're going to see Will Smith and JT Realmuto and Salvador Perez and Adley Rutschman. And Alejandro Kirk, let's make no mistake about it. He's on that list because of the offensive season that he had in 2022. I don't have any sour grapes or anything like that over the fact that Jonah Heim used to be with the Orioles because it's Adley Rutschman. Like we have Adley Rutschman. I'd much rather have Adley Rutschman than Jonah Heim. If Adley Rutschman didn't exist in the Baltimore baseball world, then yeah, there might be sour grapes there. But for me, it's like, all right, I'm happy that Jonah Heim is having as good a career. I don't want to start to dislike him because people are ramming him down my throat as if he's close to being better than Adley Rutschman. Guys, he's not. He's not. But should he have been on the list? Absolutely. Is he better than Alejandro Kirk? Yes. Is he a better defensive player than the Contreras brothers? Yes. The offensive profile, he's done this 1 year. Before this year, he hadn't had an OPS above, I think it was like 655. So he's got to do it more than once. If he comes back and has another year this year like he did in 2023, then he's going to be in the top 5 next year. You can bet your bottom dollar he's going to be there. But it's just one of those things where he's not there yet because it's you got to show me more than once that you deserve to be there. Yeah. Before we move on to other things, I do want to talk a little bit about Gunnar Henderson. Not the Orioles representative on the top 10 shortstops right now. They usually give you a representative for each team. And Gunnar Henderson was nowhere to be found. And when you have a guy who I think he was 3rd in the American League in WAR, and he finished as the Rookie of the Year, that dude would be on any top 10 list at any position, which makes me and for the Orioles, it was Jackson Holliday who was their representative to be part of the top 10 list. And Brian Kenny actually put him on his top 10 list at number 10, Jackson Holliday for shortstop, which leads me. And Brian Kenny's one of those guys who definitely has his opinion and sticks to it. And he tends to favor a lot of things that I don't like. So for me, the fact that Jackson Holliday comes in at 10 on his list, despite having not played a single inning at the major league level, that's something to be to really look into and be like, wow, this dude is really even a better prospect than maybe I even think he is. But Gunnar Henderson, Ryan, it makes me think he's got to be thought of as a third baseman when it comes to that shredder that we're talking about on MLB Network. Because otherwise, how is he not in the top 10 for shortstops?
Right. He absolutely should be in the top 10 shortstop list. But I guess he's quantified as a third baseman, which, he did play there a lot this year. I think he's going to play a bit more shortstop this year. It's really hard to predict because, we've talked about this at length, but there's so many guys who can play so many infield positions that are either on this roster or pushing to be on this roster. And so, yeah, I expect to see him on the third base list. I think third base might be a little deeper than shortstop in terms of a top 10 list. There's a lot of studs over there. And not that there aren't at shortstop, but, third base seems pretty top heavy to me. But in any event, I absolutely expect to see Gunnar on the third base list. I'm surprised that Brian Kenny put Jackson Holliday at top 10 right now. That is, like you say, it speaks volumes to what he's capable of. The idea that he might crack the opening day roster. it's exciting, man. We got a lot of dudes on this team.
Yeah, there's a lot of dudes that are dudes on this team for sure, which makes me think. And I guess I can see their thinking because they're projecting, and even like the beat writers around the Orioles, they're projecting that Jordan Westburg is going to get like 130 starts at second base this year. So maybe the MLB right now shredder is looking at Jordan Westburg's playing second, Gunner's playing third, Jackson Holliday's playing short, and that's what they're taking into account. Which means I'm not going to be surprised to see Westburg as the Orioles representative as having a chance to make the top 10, unless he's not going to at second base, and then Gunner for third base. I think that's how it's going to play out. Orioles, they did sign a player, not one that we were hoping for. They signed Errol Robinson to a minor league deal, according to Rod Kabako of MASNsports.com. The Orioles signed 29-year-old utility player Errol Robinson to a minor league deal. Not the Robinsons on my wall behind me. The announcement didn't include mention of a spring training invite, but he's likely on the list. He's a local product. He grew up in Boyd's, Maryland, and he attended St. John's College High School in D.C. Dodgers drafted in the 6th round in 2016 out of the University of Mississippi. He's a career 251, 332, 347 hitter in 7 minor league seasons. Has not reached the major leagues yet, though he's 29 years old. 82 doubles, 10 triples, 28 home runs, 196 RBIs, and 95 stolen bases in those 7 minor league seasons. Ryan, this is a guy, if you look at his numbers, he doesn't strike out a ton. He averages less than a strikeout a game in his professional career. So he seems to put the bat on the ball, but he doesn't seem to do much damage when he does put the bat on the ball. He's played every position except for catcher, first base, and pitcher. But this is mainly a depth move for the Orioles. He's going to get an invite to spring training, but he's going to end up playing at AAA and giving them depth, and maybe he'll be an injury replacement at some point this year.
You know, I saw this pop up on your notes, and I hadn't seen the news that the Orioles signed this guy. But I saw you throw this in the notes, and I was thinking, why do I know this name? Why do I recognize Errol Robinson? Well, in 2018, as we were approaching the trade deadline, it was reported by MLB Pipeline that the Orioles had agreed to a trade to send Manny Machado to the Dodgers for Yusniel Diaz, who was the Dodgers' number 4 prospect at the time, Dustin May, who was their number 10 prospect at the time, and Errol Robinson, who was number 17. So this deal was reported by a lot of different people, including MLB Pipeline. And then I guess it dissolved, and the trade ended up being Dean Kramer, Ryland Bannon, the rest of the guys that came over. But Errol Robinson could have been an Oriole 5.5, 6 years ago now. I guess he's an Oriole now. But like you said, Paul, just a depth move here. I don't expect him to break camp with the team. I think there's too much competition at this point. He's never made it to the bigs. You know, an interesting profile, got some speed, not a ton of pop, but, you know, he could be, I don't know. I don't think it could be much.
Yeah.
But it can't hurt to have depth. I mean, it's not a needle mover for me.
If Errol Robinson is playing for the Orioles this year in more than a spot filler, there's a problem. There's
something has gone terribly
Something
wrong.
has gone terribly wrong. Now I forgot about that Yusniel Diaz Dustin May trade. I remember it being mentioned, and then the Dodgers pulling back. I think because they didn't want to include Dustin May, right? Yeah. Can you imagine? Which would you rather have at this point? Dustin May, who's had surgeries, he's missed a lot of time, but when he's pitched, he's been dominant, or Dean Kramer?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think Dustin May has higher upside over the course of his career. And I think he might be a better pitcher overall, but man, Dean has been a dog for us. And it's hard. I wouldn't be able to look Dean Kramer in the eye and say, I'd rather have Dustin May. I can't do it.
Well, and Dean's posted up, right? I mean, he missed the first month of 2022 because he had that oblique strain. Literally, he was in the bullpen on opening day warming up, and he strained his oblique. Missed the first month. He ends up making 21 starts for the Orioles and it was 23 starts and pitching to a 3.21 ERA in 2022. And he was nasty. He was damn good. And in the second half, you can make a case that he was their best starter down the stretch. Then last year, you know, he had a terrible first month. He might as well have had an oblique strain again. And then his last 26 starts, he pitches to a 3.58 ERA. Dean Kramer's been that dude for the Orioles. He's not that dude like Kyle Brash and Grayson Rodriguez are, but that's a guy who you could say any team would say Dean Kramer's our number 3, and they would feel confident moving forward with that. Dustin May, the upside is so high, he just can't stay on the field, it seems. But
right.
Would you rather have a guy who has that kind of upside or a guy who is going to post up every 5th day? I think you got to take the guy who knows he's going to post up every 5th day and keep you in ball games.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm a big Dean guy. He's not flashy. He doesn't throw 99, but man, he's, like I said, he's been consistently part of a really solid rotation. And you said it yourself, Paul. He'd be a solid number 3 on a lot of teams. He's going to be our number 4, number 5, and he's a damn good one.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, definitely would rather have Dean Kramer at this point, but I can't say definitely because it's close, because Dustin May is so good when he actually does pitch. I want to remind you, no playoff football watch party is complete without Royal Farms world famous chicken. Get an 8-piece mix for just $12 or a 10-piece dark mix for just $15 at your neighborhood Royal Farms stores today. Definitely going to want to have that Royal Farms chicken probably next Saturday when the Ravens take on, God, I'm hoping it's the Steelers. I am so hoping it's the Steelers. We'll get into that. Not that I'm not scared of anybody. We'll talk about that later in the show. Definitely hoping it's the Steelers next week. Look, Orioles, they agreed to contracts with 8 of 13 arbitration-eligible players. The players that were eligible: Anthony Santander, projected to get a raise from $7.4 million to $12.7. Danny Coulomb, $1 million to $2.2. John Means, $2.975 to $5.93. Ryan O'Hearn, $1.4 million to $3 million. Cedric Mullins, $4.1 million to $6.4. Austin Hayes, $3.2 to $6.1. I know this is monotonous. Sorry, guys. Dylan Tate was projected to make the same that he made last year, $1.5 million. Ryan Mountcastle, big bump, $738,400 to $4.2 million. CNL Perez, $732,300 to $1.3 million. Cole Irvin, $737,600 to $1.8 million. Jacob Webb, $720,000 to $1.2 million. Ramon Arias, $734,700 to $2 million. And Tyler Wells, $732,400 to $2.3 million. So a lot of guys projected to go from league minimum to millionaires. And again, 13 players who are arbitration eligible. The Orioles agreed to terms with 8 of those players. Here we go again. Dylan Tate, he got the $1.5 million. John Means actually settled for about $2.5 million less, $3.325 million. Cedric Mullins, $6.325 million. So he settled for close to what he's projected to get. Cole Irvin, $2 million. So he got $200,000 more than his projections. Ryan Mountcastle, $4.137 million. So close to the $4.2 million he's projected. Anthony Santander, this one surprised me, $11.7 million. He took $1 million less in arbitration. Then Ramon Arias, $2.1 million, which is actually a little bit more than what he was supposed to get. And Tyler Wells, $1.9625 million. So about $4 million, $3.5 million down from what $350,000, down from what he was supposed to get from the Orioles. So that leaves a number of guys who are mainstays on this roster who have not gotten contracts taken care of yet. Look, the deadline was, I believe, yesterday at 1 p.m. Or was it 2 days ago? Or was it Tuesday? I don't effing know.
I don't know, man. I get the Twitter notifications that all these players are signing to terms. It's funny that people don't understand.
They're like, oh, we signed this guy. It's like,
but
he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah. Paul, let me add to the monotony real quick, just to point out the difference or the variance in contract proposals for the 5 Orioles that did not agree to terms. Danny Coulomb filed at $2.4 million. The Orioles filed at $2.2. Going down the list, Austin Hayes filed at $6.3 million. The Orioles filed at $5.85 million. Ryan O'Hearn filed $3.8 million. Orioles $3.2. CNL Perez filed at $1.4 million. The Orioles at $1.1. And Jacob Webb asked for $1 million, and the Orioles offered $925,000. So not any crazy variance there. There are no situations this year where it's like, Orioles fans frustrated that Trey Mancini didn't get, that their Orioles taken into a hearing, This is pretty standard process. 5 players to not agree is kind of big in the grand scheme of things. I think there were only 23 or 22 across Major League Baseball that didn't agree to terms before the deadline. With that being said, all these guys will be Orioles next year, unless, a trade happens. But, they'll still have an opportunity to work out a contract until the hearings. And if they don't agree on something before then an arbiter will decide. And then it's a situation where, like we saw with Corbin Burns last year, it's the kind of situation where hard feelings could come up, because the point of these arbitration hearings is the player saying, this is why I'm good enough to earn this amount of money. And the team saying, this is why we don't think this is why you don't deserve this amount of money, which it sucks, right? But at the same time, that's the business of baseball. And so we saw it with Corbin Burns and the Brewers last year. He had an interview at the beginning of spring training where he was like, I felt disrespected, Now, hopefully we don't see anything like that with the Orioles this year. The variance in, contract proposals here, I don't see anything that I think will really present a huge issue. Austin Hayes will make around $6 million. Ryan O'Hearn will make around $3.5 million. There's not a lot of big discrepancy here, and I don't think we're going to see any situations where a player is, asking to be pushed out the door.
Yeah, that Corbin Burns thing, you said that they basically blamed him for them missing the playoffs in 2022. But this is a guy who just ranked number 2 on the top 10 pitchers right now. And they blamed him for not making the playoffs in 2022, which is why I thought that maybe he would be an Oriole at the deadline last year. But we got jumping Jack Flaherty to come out and pitch for the Orioles. He had one good start, a lot of these guys, Hayes, O'Hearn, Coulomb, Perez, they're not going to make it to an arbitration hearing. They're going to settle. These numbers are so close. They're going to settle right in between. I mean, Danny Coulomb, what you're really looking at is a difference of $100,000 at the end of the day, because he'll come down $100,000. The Orioles will go up $100,000, and boom, he'll get $2.3 million this year. Jacob Webb and CNL Perez, the only ones that you could really, I mean, with Jacob Webb, it's a difference of $75,000. Like, let's just pay him. Who cares? And CNL Perez, difference of $300,000. Those are the only guys who can legitimately come to them and say, okay, CNL, your first 3 months were god awful. Like, they were god awful. And Jacob Webb, you can say, dude, who the hell were you the last month? You're the guy who just kept giving up big 3-run homers and grand slams down the stretch and in the playoffs. Why would we give you more money than we think you're worth? And then you could make the case for Austin Hayes, because back-to-back years, huge first halves, and then just fell off a cliff the second half. But he's that dude who he was a Gold Glove finalist. He was an all-star, and nobody's going to man left field better than Austin Hayes with that wall out there. So that's not going to reach a hearing. I wouldn't be surprised if none of them reach a hearing. They don't tend to go to them, and when they do, they don't tend to lose. So I think that they'll get deals done with everybody before they reach that point. And I think that happens during spring training. Like, they'd have to leave spring training to do the hearing.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes. It's normally around the middle of February, around the time when pitchers and catchers are reporting. So I don't know if they necessarily miss time, but it's around that time frame. But I agree with you. I don't think any of these are going to eventually make it to hearing. I see contracts being agreed upon before then. And it's creeping up, Paul. We're about a month from pitchers and catchers. It's the time. The offseason has flown by, it seems. And I think that's partly because I've been so focused on the Ravens and enjoying the season that they've had. But yeah, we're coming down the home stretch.
Yeah, it doesn't
about a month
feel
left.
like it was 3 months ago that the Orioles played their final postseason game. Like, that was 3 months ago. That's crazy. 3 months from now, the Orioles will be in like week 3 of the season. That's pretty nuts. Yeah. It always moves fast. Yeah. This year it's moved even faster because, like you said, the Ravens have been so damn good. We've been really they're good every year, but we've been really paying attention to them. And I just had a daughter, you know what I mean? So we've been appointments and, my other career, my full-time career, and, preparing for my daughter to be here. It's just, the time has flown by, but I hope it flies by even more so we can get out of the stage where she's up crying all night, because it sucks. I love her to death, but it's tough. So let's talk a little bit about these guys who did get who did agree to terms. Tate, $1.5 million. Former Bat Around co-host and producer Zach Goodman reached out to me, said, why would they do this? I was like, why wouldn't they do it? It's the same amount he made last year, so he didn't get a raise, and he looks to be healthy. He's like, we don't know that he's ever going to pitch again. I was like, dude, did you not see the video of him throwing a plyo ball 100 miles an hour? He's like, I did not see that. I showed it to him. He goes, oh, well, then this is a good signing. $1.5 million for Dylan Tate all because of the plyo ball. He just hadn't seen that, but credit to Zach. He's just super busy with his internship and with his girlfriend in grad school.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a lot going on. So glad to see Tate back. I mean, if he can be that back end, high leverage reliever that he was in 2022, get back to form there. I was the guy who felt like he was kind of like smoke and mirrors in 2022. I thought that he was constantly giving up like big home runs and big run scoring hits. He only gave up 2 home runs in 2022. So I was mistaken there, but I just feel like I would see him come in and give up a big hit. Your cats are running around back there. I always thought that I'd see him come in and give up a big hit in a big situation where the runs weren't credited to him, but they were inherited runners that he allowed to score. But I'm happy to have Dylan Tate back. That's addition right there without having to go out and sign a free agent. Your thoughts on Dylan Tate?
Yeah, I think 1.5 is certainly fair. I'm excited to have him back. I think he brings a different level of bullpen help in terms of that the sinker moves a ton, good breaking ball, and like you said, Paul, he doesn't get beat bad very often. He's typically he might give up a hit or two, but he's not gonna come out and ruin a game the way someone like Jacob Webb might. It's exciting to have him back. I was kind of frustrated that he never made it back last year. Obviously, I understand, injuries can pile up and get worse and, take too long to heal. But I'm excited to get him back. I think it's one of those, we talk about Grayson Rodriguez being called back up from the minor leagues around the All-Star break last year, or around the trade deadline. And, the documentary, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, it mentioned that that's like getting an ace at the trade deadline without having to give anything up for it. And I think that's kind of how I'm looking at Dylan Tate returning, is he's a guy who fell off our radar last year because he wasn't pitching. And now we're going to have him back. And I think that's, especially with the loss of Bautista, I think he's going to be a good guy to have in the back end.
How often did you think of Dylan Tate? Like, not at all. Not at all.
Hardly ever. I'd see a tweet that he had a setback and was not going to pitch for the rest of the year, and it was like, okay, I forgot he was supposed to pitch.
When he had that what was it? Some kind of stress fracture or something like that. Maybe not a stress fracture, but it was some kind of strain. When he had that, it was like, it's really tough to come. That's what Carlos Rodon was trying to come back from last year, and we saw how terrible he was when he did come back. And you're looking at Dylan Tate, and it was like, all right. They said that he would be ready by April. Then it was like, all right, he's not going to be ready till May. Then it was he had a setback. And when they said in May that he had a setback, it's like, this dude's not pitching this year. I called it on this show, on the Bat Around in May, that Dylan Tate was not going to pitch for the Baltimore Orioles in 2023. And he didn't. Having him back, I think, is big for the bullpen. It just makes him that much stronger. And he's also not going to be put in a situation where he has to be like, he's that guy you can bring him in anywhere now. He doesn't have to be an 8th inning guy. He doesn't have to be a 9th inning guy. He can be a 5th or 6th inning guy, and you're still good because you've got CNL Perez and Yennier Cano and probably DL Hall and Craig Kimbrell at the back end of that bullpen. So Dylan Tate, he's just going to make you that much stronger, and he's going to help you shorten games. And this is now, to be fair, this is what I was saying. This is exactly what I was saying about Michael Givens last year. Literally almost word for word what I was saying about Michael Givens last year. And he looked like he put on about 25 pounds and not in muscle. And he was just really ineffective when he did pitch, and he was hurt all year. But I think Dylan Tate's younger. I think he's more athletic at this point in his career. I think that he's got a better shot of really sticking with the Orioles this season. John Means, $3.325 million, settled for $2.6 million less than the projection. This one actually, it makes sense to me when I think about it, because of the fact that he knows that he's going to be on an innings limit. He knows he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. He wasn't able to post up in the division series despite how well he pitched in his 4 starts at the end of the year. And this is kind of like a make good contract. And maybe there's been, internal discussion with the Orioles like, look, we really like you. We want you to be in Baltimore. This is your last year of arbitration before you become a free agent. Let's do this. And if you do what we think you can do, we'll talk extension at some point this year. Now, that's just me, postulating. I don't know that that's what's happening, but it makes sense to me that he would settle for significantly less than his projections, given what we're looking at with John Means.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. He didn't pitch a ton last year. He's going to be on an innings limit. I think it's a fair number. That projection of 5.93 million, I'm not sure where that would have come from. That would have doubled his salary, which not to say that John Means doesn't deserve, several $1 million, but he hasn't been on the mound and he wasn't able to pitch in the playoffs. And it put us in a tough spot where we had to give Dean Kramer the nod in Game 3 while he was dealing with, off the field back in his home country. And that's not John Means' fault by any stretch. I don't mean to deflect blame there, but he hasn't been on the mound. So to give him a raise of double his contract, I think would have been a little much. I do think this is kind of a, let's see what you can do. I don't think the Orioles have any plans to move on from John Means. I think they want him in the rotation. He has been, kind of like the guys in the outfield, right? Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, who saw the rebuild through and came out on the other side. I think John Means is that for this pitching staff. He's the guy who was our ace when we were struggling. It was John Means and then pray for rain, as has been the case with many Orioles pitchers over the years. Sometimes it was Chris Tillman and pray for rain. Sometimes it was Jeremy Guthrie and pray for rain, God forbid. But John Means was that guy for us. And to see him come out on the other side, despite missing so much time, I want nothing but success.
I 100% agree. And, the pressure's off of John Means at this point. He's got the pressure of coming back from Tommy John surgery and proving he can be the number 3 guy in the rotation. But he was supposed to be the ace of this rotation. He was looked upon to be the number 1 guy, even though his numbers never suggested he was a number 1 guy. He's got a career 3.7 ERA. He's been really good. He has that no-hitter. I mean, his start to 2021 was off the charts. But then what happened? He had shoulder inflammation. He had to be shut down for a month, and he struggled when he came back before he settled in again. This is a guy who, even in a truncated season, has missed at least a month of every season of his big league career. And it culminated with missing the entire season in 2022, aside from 2 starts, and the entire season in 2023, aside from 4 starts at the end of the season. So it makes sense. And look, and again, that's not to say that anything negative about John Means. It's just to double his salary. Even though it's his last season of arbitration, that's usually what happens. It doesn't make sense to double his salary given those. That would have been the main argument from the Orioles. You haven't pitched a full season in your entire career. You weren't there for the division series, and we're not going to double your salary when we don't know that we can depend on you. It's a shitty thing to say, but it's what it all comes down to. Yeah.
It's a business. You have to make business decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it.
Cedric Mullins, $6.325 million. It's only $75,000 less than what he asked for. Makes perfect sense to me because, Ryan, let's be honest, there is not a person in this organization that's ready to play center field for the Baltimore Orioles every day, aside from Cedric Mullins. Not at this point. I've watched Colton Cowser play center field, and I was not impressed. I don't think he has the speed to do it. To me, Cedric Mullins, he got almost exactly what he asked for because he has all the leverage in the world. Nobody else is ready to play center field in Camden Yards.
Yeah, Kerstad's a corner guy. Hayes is a corner guy. Santander, if he's in the outfield, is a corner guy. I saw Cowser play a good bit in the minor leagues, and I think he could play center field, but I don't know, man. It's weird. Like, he came up, and I expected him to be able to play, and then even in left,
he took circuitous routes. It felt like, he'd catch the baseball, but there were a lot of balls where I'm like, Cedric would have called that.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of kind of awkward movements. Like something about him in the outfield, just it looks like he wasn't ready. And maybe that's because he was struggling at the plate and, he was having trouble compartmentalizing those struggles and they were following him into the field. I think he's a better athlete than he looked defensively. I think I think maybe he just needs some fine tuning, but I do think he could play center field. I do not think he's ready.
I don't think so either. He has. I think he's got a chance to break camp with the club. We're talking about Colton Cowser. He's going to have to beat out Heston Kjerstad, which I don't know is going to happen. Now, I think those guys are going to have an epic battle in spring training, and it's going to be a tough decision. Don't discount a trade also. One of those guys could be gone, or one of the three mainstay outfielders we're talking about in Hayes, one of those two, Hayes or Santander, could be dealt. I think it'd be more likely to be Santander than Hayes, but the Orioles have a lot of good problems in the outfield. But Cedric Mullins getting what he asked for because of all those problems. The main problem is there's nobody else to play center field. So,
right,
Cole Irvin, $2 million, which is $200,000 more than what he was projected to get. So to me, it says the Orioles anticipate him having a big role. They anticipate him filling the role that Austin Voth was supposed to fill last year. And I think that they anticipate he's going to do it better than Voth did. And I think that's why he got more than the projection.
That's my expectation as well. I still am not sure that necessitates, I guess is the word, a $200,000 increase from what he was projected to get. But the fact of the matter is that
if that's what he asked for, or maybe he asked for a little bit more and they met somewhere in the middle. But I think it shows that they have a lot of confidence that Cole Irvin can be that 2022 Austin Voth.
Yeah. Absolutely. And look, they've got 3 more years of control with him. So you got to give him a shot out there and, see what he can do. You gave up Daryl Hernandez for him, who has been, worked his way up to AAA with the
No, they have one more season in Oakland.
Yeah. So the Oakland A's. Yeah. So I mean, good for Irvin getting $2 million. I mean, I expect, we talked about this on the last show or the show before that he's likely going to fill that Austin Voth role. And I think there's more upside.
I want to bring up Irvin a little bit later. Don't let me forget to do it. But I I'm putting that on you, Ryan. It's your responsibility to make my brain remember stuff.
Oh God,
the cat's jumping around.
No, I'm trying to find a pen so I can write it down on this index card next to me.
Cole Irvin.
All right, Cole Irvin.
Ryan Mountcastle, $4.137 million. He was projected to get $4.2 million. To me, it shows that the Orioles think they fixed him last year, and they think that this is a guy that's going to hit in the middle of their order and have a big year for them. I expected him to be their version of Austin Riley last year, and he kind of became that guy when he came back from Vertigo. He was off the charts good when he came back from Vertigo, and then he ended the season a little beat up again. But Ryan Mountcastle getting close to the projections makes me think that the Orioles think that they fixed him, and they think that he's maybe gonna have a career year for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a significant raise. He hasn't made more than $1 million in a season yet. Now he's going to make 4.1. That's impressive. It's great for him. And yeah, he's going to be an anchor of the lineup. Whether he's hitting 3, 4, 5, 6, anywhere around there. I think Mountcastle is going to produce as long as he's healthy and on the field. He's too talented. He hits the ball too hard, not to be a good offensive contributor. And defensively, last year I think his metrics were a little down, but he went from a guy who couldn't stick at shortstop in the minor leagues to a guy who couldn't stick in left field. And we're thinking this guy might be a career DH. And then he came out in 2022 and had an excellent defensive year as a first baseman. Yeah. So, took a little bit of a step back in 2023, but I think that could just be, kind of a blip on the radar. Mountcastle is a valuable guy.
You talk about hitting. We only talk about hitting when it comes to Vertigo. It's got to be tough to catch a baseball and play first base when you're on almost every play. You probably see the second most amount of action behind the catcher as amongst position players, and you're dealing with Vertigo. That's got to be tough. Ryan Mountcastle. he's earned the paycheck that he got. Anthony Santander, this one was surprising. 11.7 million, $1 million down from his projections. More home runs than any switch hitter in baseball the last 2 seasons. He's become a team leader. His batter's eye has improved greatly. I believe he set a career high this past season in on base percentage. The strikeouts are down, the walks are up, the home runs. He's gonna give you 30 home runs. Anthony Santander, $1 million less than what he was projected.
Yeah, I can tell you're looking up the stats right now. I feel like he's set a career high in on-base percentage, or at least walk rate, in like each of his last 3 or 4 big league seasons. He's definitely improved in that regard. I mean, 11.7 I think is fair for a guy who has been a staple in the lineup. I still think that's high for a player of what he brings to the table. He's a good power bat. He's a mediocre defensive outfielder. I know he was a Gold Glove finalist a few years ago, but I don't. The eye test doesn't match that with Santander. He'll make a couple diving plays here and there, but he's not a guy who the balls hit his way and I'm like, oh, this is a can of corn. Offensively, we've talked about. Man, look, I don't want to keep saying this stuff because it sounds like I don't like Anthony Santander. I love the guy. But I don't think it's so hard to articulate. You know what I'm like trying to get across, where it's like, I love the dude. I think he's been a great factor for this team and a great asset, but I think he gets traded. I think he should be traded. It feels weird to say, but that's, we talked about him not being a 3 or a 4, but more of a 5 or a 6 in the lineup. And look, man, he's earned a salary. I really think he gets traded.
Let me put this into perspective a little bit here for Anthony Santander. This year, career high for an OPS in a season that wasn't a truncated 60-game season. And remember, he played 33 games that year in 2020. So for a full season, career high in OPS plus. In OPS, he was a 121 OPS plus. 95 RBIs this year after 89 the previous year. He's got 61 home runs the last 2 years. The walks have been there each of the last 2 years. Strikeouts have gone up, but think about the fact that the strikeouts have gone up, but the walks have gone up, and the OPS has gone up. He was a 3-win player this past season, which is a career high for him. In the outfield, he was worth overall. He was worth one defensive run saved, but that's because in left field he was negative 32. In right field, he was worth 5 defensive runs saved. But look at this. At first base, 17 defensive runs saved at first base this year. And this is according to Baseball Reference. Anthony Santander at first base was worth 17 defensive runs saved at first base.
He played he played
4
12 games there, didn't he?
He played 12 games there, 17 defensive runs saved.
Wow.
Maybe they look at him and they say, all right, he's 29 years old in 2024. He's a switch hitter with pop from both sides. He can play right field pretty damn well. He can play first base pretty damn well. And maybe it's, all right, Ryan, we're going to give you the money we think that you're worth, that you project. Excuse me. We're going to give you the money you projected to be worth this year. But if you don't have a career year, maybe Anthony Santander's our first baseman. Maybe we extend him. Do I think that that's the case? Probably not, but I don't doubt that there's been conversations about that in the warehouse where they're looking at Anthony Santander like, look, he looked really good over at first base. It was only 12 games, but he looked really good over there. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get even more starts this year, and maybe Ryan O'Hearn plays a little bit more right field. Do I think he's going to start 80 games at first base? No, but maybe 30. If he starts 30 games at first base and continues to build those numbers, there's a real conversation to be had, especially if Mountcastle continues to struggle the way he has since his breakout rookie year. Do I think he's more likely to be traded than to be extended to be the Orioles' future first baseman? Yeah, I think he's more likely to be traded, but I think those conversations have been had.
I think that's likely as well. I'd be a little scared to look at Ryan O'Hearn's defensive metrics in the outfield. That's not
Like
something
that
that
game against the
really
Cubs
strikes my
where
fancy, to
a
be honest
routine
with you.
fly ball and he just flat out missed it, and it turned into like a 2-run triple.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's like throwing Trey Mancini or Chris Davis in the outfield. You can do it. You can put that body out there, but it's not necessarily going to be pretty. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this guy so much and what he means to this team. I could see him, getting more time at first base. 17 defensive runs saved in 12 games is absurd.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, credit to the coaching staff that's helped him, train over there. We saw before he made an appearance there, we saw a lot of
Well, and
practice
also
at first base.
keep in
And
mind,
so,
I
yeah, good on
believe he
him.
played a lot of first base in high school, and I believe that he played a lot of first base coming up through the Guardian system. So this isn't unheard of for him. It's just that they thought that the arm and the glove was better in the outfield, and that he profiled better as a corner outfielder. And I can understand that.
Right. And he had been a corner outfielder for us for the last
Exactly.
5-6 seasons. So,
Ramon
yeah.
Arias, $2.1 million. He was projected to get $2 million. Gold Glover. He can play really good second base, really good third base. The bat, he doesn't get enough lift under the ball. He's had some really big hits for this team. I can't imagine a scenario that he's here on opening day. I think that he is going to be part of whatever package the Orioles come up with to trade for a starting pitcher. I cannot imagine that Ramon Arias is on the Baltimore Orioles opening day roster.
I can't either. There's just too many guys for that role. He did, did he win? He won a Gold Glove.
Oh,
2
did I
years
say
ago, right?
finals? Yeah,
Wasn't
no,
just a
he
finalist.
won the
won
Gold
it.
Glove in 2022.
Yeah, no, I was just checking. Yeah, so there's got to be, and his bat is fine. It's serviceable, right? There's got to be some trade value there. He's not going to be the centerpiece of a deal for a top starting pitcher, not by any stretch. But I can't imagine him breaking camp with the team. There's just too much competition. He's a good player, but he's not going to be a survivor when he's competing with Jordan Westberg and Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holliday and Connor Norby and Kobe Mayo and, Joey Ortiz and all these other guys. There's not a spot for
you
him.
look at him, he had the third lowest OPS plus on the team last year of players that played at least 100 games. His OPS plus was 98. Only Jorge Mateo at 70 and Adam Frazier at 94 were worse than he was. And that's despite a 264, 328, 375 slash line with a 703 OPS plus 98. Grounded into his fair share of double plays, and just didn't come up with a lot of power. He hit 4 home runs last year after hitting 16 the year before. He's not going to be here, but I think that he could be a really part of an enticing package, to maybe the Brewers for Burns or the White Sox for Cease. He could be part of an enticing package there as maybe a throw in, like, hey, we'll give you this guy who's a Gold Glover who is a good, solid player. Tyler Wells, he was projected to get, what was it, 2.3 million, and 2.3 million. He's getting 1.9625. This is taking a lot longer than I wanted it to. My apologies. I think that's indicative of a guy who was the AL WHIP leader in the first half of the season, and then fell off, and then got dead arm. And it's indicative of a guy who they think could be in their rotation or a guy who they think could be in their bullpen. The fact that he got a bump in his first year of arbitration up to close to $2 million, to me says that that they're paying him for what he did do, but also for what he didn't do and what he's going to do.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick on Tyler Wells. I think this is certainly a fair salary increase for a guy who has come out and done everything you've asked of him since he made it to the bigs. He's been your closer. He's been a middle reliever. He's been a long reliever. He's been a starter. And he's been a dog every step of the way. So congrats to Tyler Wells on the Rays, and I hope we see him making more.
I hope so. That means he's had a good year. So today's show brought to you by Help My Gambling Problem. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Ryan, we'll touch on this briefly. The Orioles 2023 season movie 101, the story of the 2023 Baltimore Orioles. It came out on Wednesday, January 10th at 7 p.m. What were your thoughts on this?
I thought it was awesome, Paul, but I do want to kind of gloss
Yeah.
over this, if that's all right. No one really. First of all, we
Yeah.
spent a lot of time on arbitration. Number two, I don't think anyone really cares
Yeah.
what we thought of the documentary.
Yeah.
Form your own opinions. I thought it was awesome. It got me really excited for the season. I want to bring up a tweet that I just saw Bird's Eye View repost from a sports columnist at the Washington Times. Says Orioles may not be spending money on free agents, but they are about to get a cash infusion. I'm hearing a sponsorship deal is in place with T. Rowe Price for a uniform patch. 5 years,
Wow,
$75 million. I popped on Twitter to try to find Jeff Passan's list of arbitration guys, and I came across that. How are we feeling about a patch on the Orioles jerseys? T. Rowe?
Hey, I'm all for it. T. Rowe is in charge of my retirement account, my retirement fund. So bring it on.
There you go.
Look,
yeah. I know a few people who work
I have
for
a buddy
T-Rowe.
that works for T. Rowe also,
sure.
who also just had a little girl back on January 4th, his first child. So yeah, I'm if it's going to get the Orioles more money, I don't like stuffing John Angelos' pockets, but especially when I don't expect him to give back. But bring it on. Every team's doing this at this point. Might as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. If he puts it back into the team, then great. If he just pockets it, whatever. But $15 million a year they're going to get. This is just reported. This is an I'm hearing
just
tweet,
reported.
so it's nothing set in stone yet. But I came across that. Yeah, and I had to bring it up.
It's better than. What are our thoughts on 101? I enjoyed it. I thought it was telling that they left out the playoff part of it. But
me too. Yeah,
I gotta remember that I'm not on the page I'm trying to scroll down on. But yeah, the T. Rowe Price thing, more money for the team is always a good thing, and hopefully they'll use that towards supplementing this roster a little bit. Today's show brought to you by Goose Flights. Pressbox urges you to drink a beer or two in honor of Tony Saragusa. Starting this Monday, January 15th, Guilford Hall Brewery is releasing Goose Flights, a delicious lager to support Goose's medical transportation jet company. The Goose Flight Foundation is now run by Tony's kids and charitably flies needy patients to emergency treatment. You can buy Goose Flight Lager exclusively at Glory Days Grill or at Guilford Hall Brewery. $2 from every purchase goes to the cause. So raise a glass to Tony and support this great foundation. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/GooseFlights to learn all about it. And on Monday night, join us for a special launch event at Guilford Hall Brewery from 6 to 8 p.m. A $10 donation to Goose Flights gets your first beer and appetizers, plus some of Tony's former teammates will join us to celebrate the release. Awesome thing that they're doing with the Goose Flights for that foundation. Just amazing stuff. And Tony Saragusa, even posthumously, is having a huge impact on his community. So that's awesome. Just some tidying up to do here. DL Hall, he's going to be out for the Caravan. He was actually supposed to be at a number of events, it looked like, and I don't know the reasoning behind it, but James McCann is going to replace him. Adley Rutschman is going to be speaking at Oregon State, and therefore he's unable to attend. Gunnar Henderson will be at a banquet in New York to receive his AL Rookie of the Year award, and therefore he's going to be unable to attend. I know a lot of fans are super upset about that. It reminds me of, 2017 or 2018 Fan Fest when both Manny Machado and Jonathan Scope had to back out. It's not a great look, but it's not like these guys are doing because they don't want to be there. They have previous engagements and they just can't attend.
Yeah, and I mean, good for them. They have a very valid reasons. It was really fun last year having Adley, DL, and Grayson all at the same event. Those were kind of the big three at the time of Orioles prospects or Orioles, young Orioles players coming up. And that was an awesome event that they had over at Checker Spot. The attendance this year, like we've touched on, there's a lot of bigger name players who seem to be missing out. And it is what it is. It's not about, for me, it's not about the specific players you're going to see. It's about getting to be close to the team during the off season. And for me, that's cool no matter who it is. So, as far as specific events I'm looking forward to, I haven't really had a chance to deep dive into it and see what fits my schedule. But I will absolutely be at one or two, at least of the the guest bartender.
Yeah, there's the only one that I think I'm going to have an opportunity to potentially go to is on the 26th at Hopkins Brewery. I hate the word brewery. It's like a brewery. It's like rural. You ever see that David Spade thing on Saturday Night Live? Yeah, it's like that. Brewery.
I think so. Yeah.
At Hopkins Farms Brewery, my sister is a manager there on the weekends. My nephew was a busboy there, and it's right down the road. So I'll probably go check that out. It's from 4 to 6 p.m. on Friday afternoon on January 26th. That's the only one I'm going to have an opportunity to make it to, and we'll see because the workday doesn't end until 5. So we'll see if I can sneak out. Marcus Stroman signed with the Yankees, 2 years, $37 million. And if anybody's butthurt about this, it is your boy Paul Valley III. God, man, 2 years, $37 million. I wish I had saved more time for this because there's no reason that the Orioles couldn't have done that. And the only way I'm going to be okay with it is if they end up with Luzardo or Cease or Burns, because Marcus Stroman is a guy who I've wanted on this team for so long, and if you're paying him $18.5 million a year for 2 years, there's no reason that should have been right in the Orioles' wheelhouse. From everything we've heard the last 2 off seasons, should have been right in their wheelhouse, and now he's a New York Yankee. Damn it. This pissed me off. When you told me that yesterday, I was so upset. I was like so upset.
Yeah, look, remember last week when we were talking about Stroman and I said I've never really liked him, but I couldn't really pinpoint why? I think that was called foresight, Paul. Yeah. He's a New York Yankee.
Yeah.
Obviously I hate him
too now. God, I cannot stand that this happened.
It happens every offseason where there's a guy we want. He signs for a price that we absolutely could have afforded.
Chris Bassett, anyone?
It hurts every time.
For me, I thought 3 years, $70 million was doable. 2 years, $37 million. The Orioles should have signed up for that in blood. And again, the only way that I'm not upset about this is if at some point before the season, and I want it before spring training because I have PTSD about Alex Cobb. The only way that I'm not upset about this moving forward is if one of those 3 guys I mentioned, Luzardo, Cease, or Burns, is in an Orioles uniform this season. That's the only way. Damn it. The Yankees a bigger threat.
Or if Stroman
he suddenly sucked last year because he got hurt. So
that's true. That's true. But he's never had a single season fifth over 4.
That's true. He was so damn good the first. He was a Cy Young favorite the first half of the year last year. He was so good.
Yeah.
And then finally, let's close things out talking a little bit of Ravens football here. Ravens, they lost to the Steelers last Saturday. Nobody outside of Pittsburgh cared. Nobody outside of Pittsburgh cared. What I really want is for Pittsburgh to beat Buffalo, and they're going to be in a huge snowstorm trying to do it, which, to me, benefits the Steelers because I think it's the only way that they can keep pace with Buffalo is if the elements are what they're supposed to be. But I need Pittsburgh to come to Baltimore for the divisional round. I need it because all those players and all those fans talking trash about how the Steelers swept the Ravens this year and they came into your trap and trapped you, whatever the hell it was that they were saying. You played the Ravens starting quarterback was Tyler Huntley. Their starting running back was a 97-year-old Melvin Gordon. All right. You had Trenton Simpson playing middle linebacker. All right. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on you came into our house and, took us down. No, you took down – this was a preseason game for the Ravens, and this was a game that you absolutely needed, and you almost lost it. You almost blew that game. So let's be realistic here. For the love of God, let them beat Buffalo. I need the Steelers in Baltimore next weekend so the Ravens can hang a 50 spot on them. I just need it.
I can't, in good conscience, look at a playoff game and say, I hope the Pittsburgh Steelers come out on top. However, I agree with you 100% that if the Steelers find a way to beat Buffalo, give them to me, baby. Give them to me. I was at that game last weekend. I was standing in the rain. I had Steelers fans in front of me. I had Steelers fans behind me. I had Steelers fans to my left. I had Steelers fans to my right. It was a nightmare. I was standing there in the rain for 3 hours because my lovely mom, happy birthday to her, it's today, by the way. Happy birthday, Mom. She got me 2 tickets to that game for Christmas and wanted to go with me. Absolutely, Mom. I'll go to a Ravens game with you 100%. We didn't know the weather was supposed to suck. We didn't know the game wouldn't mean anything to the Ravens. It was miserable. Bring the Pittsburgh Steelers back to Baltimore. We will plow through them.
To the left of me. Joe
in the divisional
is to the
round.
right. That's what you just reminded me of. But yes, let's remind Steelers fans who the number one seed in this conference is. Like they lucked out with all those huge drops. I mean, Lamar Jackson, and we're running a little bit long again. Sorry, we do this on the bat around. That game in Pittsburgh back in week 5, Lamar was the highest graded player in the NFL that weekend. And his team lost 17-10 because his receivers dropped 7 passes, including 3 touchdowns. That's the only way that the Steelers can legitimately beat the Ravens is if that happens. And I'm telling you right now, if they come to Baltimore for the divisional round matchup next weekend, that ain't happening. Lamar is going to torch them. I almost dropped an F-bomb. He is going to torch them next week. If it's Pittsburgh, I need it. Inject it into my veins. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers next week. Give them to me. Any other thoughts before we get out of here today, Ryan?
About anything in particular? Ravens, I think they're the team to beat in the AFC. I'm already starting to prepare my Super Bowl party. I'm not necessarily preparing my Super Bowl party, but I made a statement that on Twitter like last week, I think it was, that I don't care who's coming to Baltimore. Ravens are going to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, some scavenger tries to tweet me and say, you want to put a bet on it? I'll take the rest of the AFC and you take the Ravens. I said, no, man. I was confident that the Eagles would beat the Cardinals in week 17, and they did not. And so I've lost enough money on bets that I'm not dumb enough to do that. And then a couple of days later, he says, so do you want to take me up on my bet? I said, no, because I'm not stupid. Like, I know that, 7 drops can happen. I've seen it on more than one occasion with this team. So, no. But the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl. They're going to the Super Bowl. There's not a team coming into Baltimore that's going to take them down. They're on a mission, and it's going to happen. All right. There's no Project Game Day this week because the Ravens are enjoying their bye. But join Glenn, Rita, and Femi Ayambadejo right here on these same press box pages for Project Game Day following all Baltimore playoff games this year. Project Game Day is brought to you by Superbook Sports, AJ Michaels, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we don't have a show. Thank you to all of our listeners, our watchers, our viewers, our consumers. Without you, we certainly don't have a show. Thank you, Ryan, for a great show as always. Until next week, when hopefully we'll be talking about, the Ravens still want to play because they're the best team in football. Until next week, see ya.